Hey, Ethan Sawyer, college essay guy here. Today we're going to be doing one of my favorite exercises. It's called the feelings and needs exercise. And all you need for this is a blank sheet of paper, your favorite pen, mine happens to be green, yours doesn't have to be, and the feelings and needs exercise. And you can find a PDF download of this exercise by clicking here. If you need to pause the video for a second before we get started to grab those things, go for it. But we're going to move on. So this is going to take you about 15 or 20 minutes. Take your time with it. Find somewhere quiet because you're going to want to be able to focus. And let's jump right in. Take your blank sheet of paper and turn it sideways. Turn it horizontally. And we're going to be writing some stuff along the top right here. And we're going to be writing 6 words. So when I tell you to write the first word, don't write it huge. Write it kind of small because we're going to do 6 columns. Okay? So right here in the top left corner, I want you to write the word challenges. I'm going to do it too. So, challenges. And in this column, I want you to write down 3 or 4 challenges that you've been through. Just write down there. Leave a little space in between them as you're writing them. Okay, now what do I mean by challenges? Tough stuff that you've been through. For me, some of the challenges that I faced up until high school were moving around a lot. It was really tough, having to be the new guy all the time. Another challenge I faced was my parents got divorced when I was about 16. Now, they don't have to be huge like that. It could just be, something small, but that's really meaningful to you. So take a couple minutes and pause the video if you need to. And I want you to write down 3 or 4 big challenges. And if you're having trouble coming up with challenges, you can write down big experiences, things that were meaningful that kind of shifted things for you. Okay, I'm assuming at this point that you've done all of your column full of challenges if you haven't paused the video. But once you've done that, I want you to write down the word effects. So write down the word effects. Do that as you listen to what I'm going to say now. So based on each of the challenges that you've written down, let's say you write down in your column divorce. Well, you have divorce written down as a challenge, and I have divorce written down as a challenge. But the way that we experienced the divorce was different. What do I mean by that? Well, for me, divorce meant, we just had 2 holidays, 2 Thanksgivings, 2 Christmases. But for you, divorce might have meant something different. It might have meant, lots of domestic turmoil, fighting. I don't know what your experience was like. But the point of the second column is to differentiate your experience of your challenges from everybody else who might have experienced the same challenge. So let's say your challenge was you lost someone, either to a death, or they moved away, or you just had a falling out. What were the external circumstances? Now, I'm not talking about emotions here, like I felt sad, I felt angry. We're going to save that. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. I'm talking about how is your life different on the outside? So take a minute to think about that. For each of the challenges, write down a couple of the effects or repercussions that you experienced as a result. Pause the video if you need a little more time. We're going to move on. The third column is feelings. Okay, so write down feelings or emotions. For each of the effects that you felt. So for me, an effect of my parents getting divorced was we had to go back and forth a lot. And how did I feel about that? I felt a little annoyed, a little put out. Not angry, but just kind of like, why do we have to do this? So you might write down, whatever your feelings about it were. Now, it can be hard to think about our feelings. That's where this sheet comes in. So the PDF that you can find by clicking the link at the beginning of the video or in the comments below, it's got a big list of feelings on the left side. Okay? So check that list out. It's going to be really useful. And I'm going to use it right now. So when my parents got divorced, the effect was we had to go back and forth from house to house. I felt worried. I felt worried because sometimes I would forget something at my mom's house that I needed, and I would be at my dad's. So I would be worried that the next day at school I wouldn't have everything that I needed. So for you, for each of the effects, write down emotions that you felt. And sometimes the emotions will probably contradict each other, right? So you might feel elated at something, but you might also be annoyed at the same time. So it's okay if the feelings contradict. That's life. So take a minute and pause the video if you need to, and write down if feelings or emotions that you felt as a result of whatever the external circumstance was for the challenge. And here's where it gets a little deep. Based on the feelings that you felt, For each feeling that you felt, I want you to write down, I don't know if you can read this or not, but it doesn't matter, a need. So in the fourth column, at the top, write the word need. Consider this. Consider that for every feeling you felt, there was a need that either was or wasn't getting met. Now, what do I mean by that? So let's say my feeling was restlessness or anxiousness or worry. What was my deeper need in the case that I gave already? Well, I think my deeper need was for stability and consistency. And if you're trying to think about, well, what do you mean by needs? On the right side of that page, there's a list of needs. So check out that page, and you'll be able to identify, based on the feeling, what need, if it was a negative feeling, wasn't getting met. If it was a positive feeling, like, wow, I felt happy, it might be that there's a positive need there, like because my need for connection was getting met. So consider that. For each of your feelings, write down a need that either was or wasn't getting met. So, in the fifth column, I want you to write down what I did about it. What do I mean by this? So, you experienced certain challenges, which came with certain effects or repercussions, which made you feel certain feelings, and those feelings were connected to particular needs that either were or weren't getting met. So my question for the fifth column is, what did you do to meet those needs for yourself? And this is kind of a tricky one, because you might look at that and you might think, well, I needed community or connection, but I didn't do anything about it. I just kept living my life. And that's what it might look like or feel like on the surface. But I want you to consider that your extracurricular activities, or whatever your hobbies are, or basically whatever you spend your time doing, is a way that you've been trying to get your needs met. So let me give a quick example so you understand what I mean. When my parents were divorced and there was some moving back and forth, there wasn't a ton of talking about it. So I felt kind of confused, like, why are my parents, getting divorced? My need was for transparency, for more conversation. And I also felt kind of detached. So my need was for more connection or more community. Now, looking back, my 16 or 17-year-old self wouldn't have been like, oh, I'm going to go get this need for community met. What I did was I just lived my life, and I kept doing theater, because theater was my thing. When I looked back at it, I thought, I would just write down theater, what I did about it. But then when I thought back about this, I was like, oh, theater actually did help me meet my need for community and connection. And even transparency, because in theater you have to be transparent. What's showing up for you? How are you feeling? Now that's a pretty crazy connection. So write down in the fifth column, what did you do? What have you spent the last year or two doing in your free time especially? Okay? And then you could, like I said, you can reverse engineer it and write down, okay, and I felt this feeling or this need was being met based on this activity. So you can add in some more needs if you want. Okay. So in the sixth and final column, you're going to write down what I learned. Okay? So based on what you did about it, what did you learn from the experience? And the way that I want you to frame this is in terms of, take your feelings and needs exercise, flip it over, your values. If you've done my exercises before, you know about this values list. But I want you to think of these values as the qualities that you developed based on what you did to get your needs met, based on the challenges. You kind of see how they're all connecting now, right? And another way to think about this is your superpowers. So another thing that you can write on column 6 is what I learned / superpowers. So what superpowers did you develop trying to get your needs met? So for me, getting involved in theater, I got my need for community and connection met, but I also gained some superpowers, some additional values. I expressed and experienced my creativity more, and that's one of my superpowers. I feel like when that superpower began to come out and flourish. Another one was confidence. I started to develop more confidence, because you may not know this about me, but I'm kind of an introverted or shy person. But being on stage in the theater taught me how to, use my voice and to speak more fully and to be more present in my body. There's a third one. Being more present in my body and understanding what I was feeling. Theater helped me do that. So I would just write down, creativity, confidence, using my voice, feeling my body, and feeling my emotions. So you can see I'm already listing 3 to 5. So for each of the ones that you've listed in your what I did about it, what superpowers or what values have you learned to develop based on that? Take a minute or two to do that. Pause the video if you need to. So what you should have now, and go ahead and take a look at your sheet, you should have basically a map with a ton of content. So what I want you to do is start making some connections, and this is the end of the exercise. But I want you to start connecting things from the challenge, the effects, the feelings, the needs, the what I did, with just some basic arrows. So which things connect to which things? You can kind of, identify which of these might be an interesting essay topic. And if there's something that seems like a common thread through the whole thing, just circle that real big.